Welcome, everyone. It is June 21st, the hour is 7 o'clock, so we'll begin our the meeting of the Redevelopment Agency of Tooele City. This is a business meeting. We are meeting in Tooele City Hall Council Chambers located at 90 North Main, and this meeting is also being broadcast on our YouTube channel, Tooele City YouTube channel. So we will open this RDA meeting with a roll call. Board Member McCall.
Present.
Board Member Hanson.
Present.
Board Member Graff.
Present.
And I am Board Member Manzio. I'm also present. We will excuse Board Member Brady, who is out of town. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing in motion on Resolution 2023-07, a resolution of the Redevelopment Agency of Tooele City, Utah, adopting a budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. This is presented by Shannon Wimmer, our Finance Director.
Good evening, Council. This is to adopt your final budget for the RDA. This is the only change I believe we have since the last time we presented this tentative budget to you is in line item 481010, which is the TAD project fund. In the tentative budget, we had reduced that to $240,000, and we have put that back up after discussion with the RDA board. To $400,000, which is what they believe they will need in TAD projects. So that actually keeps the budget the same as it was in fiscal year 23, rather than reducing that to the $240,000. If there are any other questions on the budget, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions on the budget? No? Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve. Wait a minute, we're supposed to have a public hearing first.
Oh, we do have to have, thanks for pointing that out. Okay, this is a public hearing. So we will open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come up and speak about the RDA budget? We'll have you sign the paper that's right here and state your name into the microphone. Okay, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing, and now I will entertain a motion.
Now I'll make that motion. We approve Resolution 2023-07.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Board Member Hanson and seconded by Board Member McCall to approve Resolution 2023-07. So we'll take a vote on that. Board Member McCall?
Aye.
Board Member Hanson?
Aye.
Board Member Graff?
Aye.
I am Board Member Manzio, and I also vote aye. So that one passes. Item number 4 on our agenda is the RDA Project Area Annual Report and Economic Development Update. This will be presented by Jared Stewart, Economic Development Director.
Okay, thank you, Council. I think we should have, is there a little presentation? Thank you, Holly, you're the best. So typically once a year, we just kind of get together and give a little update. There's also a state-required update, report that used to be due every November. We would call it the November 1st report. Now it's due June 30th. And I still call it sometimes the November 1st report, right? Because that's what it's been called for so long. But our one project area for the redevelopment agency is the Peterson and Indigo Industrial Depot, right? Which is the boundaries there on the map. So that's our project area. If we go to the next one now, thank you, Holly. This project area really was conceived and begun in 1998. And since then, there has been quite an increase in value, right? We can see that there's just that graph shows what revenues have been received to the RDA over that period of time, right? And that's gone up by 39,000% actually is what we calculate. So it's, year to year just increased. These last 2 years, you can really see that there's a significant increase there. And I think we'll kind of get into why that is. Total acreage, this is just an area of true opportunity for economic development, for job growth. This is where many of our local jobs are coming from in Tooele City, and it's a great place for employers because it's it's industrially zoned, right? Industrial employers, I guess, right? It's an area where you can do a lot, and there's a lot of history there and assets there, such as rail, right? That is a fairly unique asset that we don't see everywhere along the whole Wasatch Front and in the region is rail-served industrial depots like this. So our current assessed value of the project area is $454 million, which is up quite significantly from the year before, and we'll get into some of those reasons why as we get into our next slide. So as we look at this, right, and just for kind of reporting purposes to the public, what is a redevelopment agency? It is a state-regulated entity that elected officials serve as the board for, and you can create project areas where you agree with the other taxing entities to dedicate or rededicate a portion of the new value that's created and brought in through taxes back into reinvestments in that project area. So there's a value there that the reinvested revenue brings new business growth and adds jobs for the community and adds a value that otherwise wouldn't have been there. And that's, I think, the key point is that when you create a project area, you're going to do things with that revenue that wouldn't have happened otherwise is the objective. And here we can really see that the RDA doesn't receive everything either. There's still 25% per those agreements that goes back to the city, the county, and the school district. So they still do receive a value that maybe otherwise wouldn't have been there. And then 75% goes to the RDA for projects and reinvestment. So if we go to the next slide, we'll talk about a little bit of what we've done since 1998 when this was created, right? And we've got a lot of reinvestment in projects spanning decades back, roads, water, sewer infrastructure, so many projects that we won't get into that, but also bonds, right? We've helped to construct Tooele Technical College, contributions to bonds for City Hall, the library, the golf course, these public amenities that play a large role in the attraction of businesses, right? And we have, over the last several years, attracted businesses that are very interested and successfully working with Tooele Technical College and many of the programs they have. And if we didn't have that facility, would they come? Would they trust the training capacity and the workforce? It's a big deal, I think, for us. So I think the last line there's key improvements have led to new business growth. Okay, so if we go next, really, let's talk about this last year because there's a huge increase in values, right? Where does that come from? Part of it is a reassessment of values by Tooele County, and I think we should be appreciative of Tooele County for just looking into those values, looking at the markets, putting the true value of those into the tax rolls. So that's a big part of it. But additionally, Peterson Industrial Depot has been quite busy improving their buildings, right? There's World War II era, 1940s warehouse industrial style buildings that you would never know looking at the outside of them that they were that old. But you go in and you have these huge, wooden, really beautiful, valuable beams that are there as well. And a lot of value in reusing those buildings, and then a lot of new development on their frontage properties and for new construction as well, because there is lots of space for that. On the Ninigret side, right, we saw Carvana kind of the year before last. They've continued and kind of finished building out, and Copart was another one that developed on 38 acres that was vacant before. So those are kind of, I think, the three things that are contributing to those new values. And I think we can go next slide. So recent wins, right? We have Leitner Poma. They are a group that's European-based. They're in America. They are based out of Grand Junction, Colorado, and they are assembling and manufacturing cables and ski lifts and things that are used, snow cats, things that are used in the ski industry. And I have 100 jobs there. I think that's actually, I looked at maybe the wrong thing for that. It should be over 200 actually is what they were projecting. So it's more jobs than I had up there, which is I think just a mistake I noticed just yesterday. We sold them 25 acres of RDA property, which will help us to hopefully take and do more projects going forward, right? We can take that revenue and use it hopefully effectively. Central States Manufacturing, they've recently announced that they're going to Peterson Industrial Depot, which is a great win for the community. They are they've been remarkable to work with, I think, and just their company culture is a really good fit for Tooele. They're just employee oriented. They're an ESOP, an employee stock option program company. So if you work there, you can have a real stake in the company, and people tend to feel valued and stick around that way. And then lastly, just another huge win as the recent efforts that, as you know, we rezoned the Tooele Business Park, and that I think really kind of solidifies our vision and your vision as a council and RDA board for the future of economic development and growth in that area, and it really should help us kind of market that. We received in May approval from Union Pacific of our rail concept, which is also a big win that we think the community should know about, is that took a lot of effort to get there, right? To design this, to coordinate with Union Pacific, and we kind of got to that point, and now the fun part will be trying to, get businesses who want to utilize that rail, and so we can justify building it. So those are kind of the big things. We're already marketing the rest of our properties at the Tooele Business Park, of course. We've got hopefully a hotel group we can get interested in the northern retail kind of commercial area and green on that small map. And then we'll have other light industrial and other users come in for the rest of it. So that's the report, and I think it's a great time for the RDA, a good time to start thinking about this transition from the project area as it gets towards the end of its life, and we'll have more discussions in the future about that, I'm sure too. So I think that's all, unless there's other questions or things.
What questions do you have, comments?
Pool is growing.
Yeah, good job, Jay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's amazing how the value has increased just the last couple of years. Okay, thank you, Jared. Item number 5 on our agenda are the minutes from the June 7th, 2023 RDA business meeting. Do we have a chance to look through those? I didn't have any corrections of my own. If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Board Member Graff and seconded by Board Member McCall to approve the minutes of June 7th, 2023. So we'll take a vote on that. Board Member McCall?
Aye.
Board Member Hanson?
Aye.
Board Member Graff?
Aye.
I am Board Member Manzio, and I also vote aye. And that brings us to the adjournment of our redevelopment agency meeting. It's all yours.
Okay, you guys good? Let's start again. All right. Being the hour of 7:13 p.m., we're here to the Tooele City Council meeting at 90 North Main Street in the Tooele City Hall chambers. We encourage you to join the City Council meeting electronically by going onto the YouTube channel, the Tooele City channel. If you are attending electronically and would like to submit a comment for the public comment period or for a public hearing item, please email cmpubliccomment@tooelecity.org anytime up to the start of the meeting. Emails will be read at the designated points in the meeting. Our first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. And item number 3 on our agenda is the Mayor's Community Recognition Award, so we'll turn the time over to Mayor Nguyen.
Roll call.
Oh, yeah. I'll do that after. Yeah, go ahead. I'll do roll call after.
Thank you very much. Council, if you don't mind, I'm going to turn around and talk to the audience for just a few minutes. This special award, we call it the Twila City Mayor's Community Recognition Award. We started out honoring, for many years, youth in our community and knowing all the good things that they did. And within the last year, there have just been so many other members of our community that I felt should be recognized. So we've asked for people to nominate anyone for something that's good that they see in the community. And so once a month, the City Council allows me to take a few minutes of their meeting to honor someone in our community. Let's show this picture. Tonight, we are honoring Peter and Louise Thermos. They had planned to be here this evening, but they had something come up and they were not able to be here. But I want to still go ahead and recognize them, and then I'm going to make a personal visit to their home to take them a special gift in one of our Twila City puzzles. But I want you to know that they were nominated for helping our community. They donated 10 sandbag fillers. That's what you see in the photo, and this is Peter. They donated shovels and 5,100 sandbags to help with this year's flood mitigation efforts. Louise has been living in Twila City for more than 30 years. She worked as a medical assistant for Dr. Johnson for many years until she was able to retire. She has 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. Peter was originally from Chicago, and he moved to Twila in 1955 with his family when his stepdad was stationed at Dugway. Peter served in the Marines for 6 years, serving in Vietnam twice. He also served in the Army for 3 years, and he worked for Dugway for 25 years until retirement. Peter and Louise have been married for 22 years and have enjoyed living in Twila City. Both Peter and Louise belong to the Greek Orthodox Church, and they have strong religious beliefs. They feel very blessed, and they have learned that when you have been given much, you too should give in return. They saw a need in Twila City, and they wanted to be able to help the folks in their community. So I just want to thank them for their service, going above and beyond of helping this community where they didn't have to. They saw the need and they wanted to serve, and these are the people that we want to recognize tonight. So congratulations to Peter and Louise, and I look forward to meeting both of them in person soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I skipped number 2 on our agenda, so our number 2 is our roll call. We'll do that now. Councilwoman Manzione.
Present.
Councilman Graft.
Present?
Councilman McCall.
Present.
And Councilman Brady is off vacationing, so he's excused tonight. And I'm Councilman Hanson, and I'm also present. We will go to item number 4 on our agenda. Number 4 is the public comment period. Anybody here tonight is welcome to come up to the podium and talk about anything they'd like to about in the city. So you're welcome to come up at this time. If you do come up, there's a paper to sign. You put your name on, and we need to limit your comments to 3 minutes. So you're welcome. Anybody's welcome to come up now at this time. Well, no, don't rush. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, looks like we're not going to have anybody come for the public comment period. So we'll close the public comment period and move to item number 5 on our agenda, which is a public hearing and motion on Resolution 2023-46, a resolution of Twila City Council adopting a proposed tax rate for fiscal year 2023 and 2024, presented by Shannon Wimmer, our Finance Director.
Good evening, Council. This resolution is just adopting a proposed tax rate as we have decided to go through truth in taxation. So this really is just a formality. It doesn't really adopt the rate tonight. So, but what it does do is it does set the max tax rate that we can adopt when we officially adopt our rate on August 16th. So this proposal has us adopting a tax rate of 0.002411, which is the exact same tax rate that we adopted in 2022. But this rate is a 4.76% increase over the certified tax rate that was calculated by the state for us this year at 0.0020 or 2301. So what this resolution is just to say going forward, we will still have discussions on where we want that final tax rate to be. And we will have a public hearing on this tax rate on August 2nd. And then you will adopt the final tax rate on August 16th. And so it's still open for discussion on what rate you would formally like to adopt after this. This is just adopting the tentative rate, which again sets the max rate.
Great. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, since this has a public hearing, we'll open the public hearing at this time. If anyone would like to come and comment on this item, you come up to the podium and with a maximum of 3 minutes and sign your name if you're going to come up. Seeing no one come up, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Resolution 2023-46, a resolution adopting a proposed tax rate for fiscal year 2023-24.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Manzione and a second from Councilman Graff. We'll go to a vote. Councilman McCall?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. We will move to item 6 on our agenda, which is a public hearing and motion on Resolution 2023-47, a resolution of Tooele City Council adopting a tentative budget for Tooele City for fiscal year 2023-24, presented by Shannon Wimmer, our finance director.
Again, this is to adopt the tentative budget. This allows us to continue funding the city operations starting July 1st, but this is just a tentative budget, and it's still open for changes as we work through the truth in taxation process again, which will have a public hearing again on August 2nd, and then we will formally adopt whatever final budget you decide on August 16th. So again, this is just tentative and is still open for changes before the final budget is adopted.
All right, any questions for Shannon on this one? No, we will go ahead then and open the public hearing on this item. Same rules as the last two, so if anyone would like to come up and talk about the budget, then now is the time. Seeing nobody come up, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion for this resolution.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Resolution 2023-47, resolution of Tooele City Council adopting a tentative budget for Tooele City for fiscal year 2023-2024.
I'll second. Oh. We both second.
We got a motion from Tony, for Councilman Graff, and we got a second from Councilman McCall.
Okay.
And we'll take it to a vote. Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Passes 4 to 0. Okay, item number 7 on our agenda is a public hearing and motion on Resolution 2023-48, a resolution of Tooele City Council approving budget amendments for fiscal year 2022-2023, presented again by Shannon Wimmer.
Good evening. So these are our final budget amendments for the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. You should have an individual itemized list of all of the amendments in your packet, but there are a couple that I wanted to point out because of the amounts. One is number 78. This is just, we have already expended and allocated all of the ARPA funds, but this $185,000 is for the impact fees that we allocated to the Murdoch subdivision and the Boys and Girls Club. I missed those in our last round when we approved budget amendments. So those expenditures have been approved by the council, but they're just getting on the list. And then also for number 85, When we did the ARPA adjustments last time, we adjusted the expenditures that you had approved for ARPA, we offset that to fund balance, and we actually need almost $2 million of that to actually go to the revenue account, because that revenue did come in fiscal year '23 and is budgeted at 0. So that's really just a booking change to move that from the budget in appropriation from fund balance to an actual revenue account. And then the other ones, I'm happy to read through all of them individually or just answer questions, whichever the council would prefer.
Is there any questions on any of these line items?
Thanks for the explanation out to the side. That was really helpful.
Seeing no questions, you need a little more time? You guys good?
I saw.
Okay. I will, yeah, thank you, Shannon. We will then open a public hearing for this one also. This requires a public hearing. So we'll open the public hearing for discussions about budget amendments. If anybody would like to come up, now would be the time for that. And seeing no one, will close the public hearing. And I will make a motion that we approve Resolution 2023-48, a resolution of Twila City Council approving budget amendments for fiscal year 2022-2023.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilman Hanson and a second by Councilwoman Manzione. We'll take it to a vote. Councilman McCall.
Aye.
Councilman Graft.
Aye.
Councilman Manzione.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. We will go to item 8 on our agenda. A public hearing and motion on ordinance 2023-30, an ordinance of Twila City reassigning the land use designation of approximately 2 acres of land located at 602 West 3 O'Clock Drive from high-density residential to regional commercial. And that'll be presented by Andrew Agard, our Community Development Director.
Thank you, members of the council. This land use map amendment involves the approximately 2-acre property highlighted in red on your aerial photograph. It's located at the intersection of 3 O'Clock Drive and SR 36, or Main Street. And the council may be familiar with this property as we went through a considerable effort to change the zoning approximately 4 or 5 months ago to MR12, multifamily residential. Since that time, the applicant that was going to develop the property has backed out and is no longer pursuing development on the property. And it has been sold to another developer who used the water rights elsewhere. So we're back to square one in regards to these properties and how to develop them. The property, as mentioned, was recently rezoned to MR12, as were the properties to the north and to the south. And then you'll note that the properties to the west are zoned R17. Then we have some RR1 and R17 zoning to the southeast. The current land use designation of the property is high-density residential, which is multifamily residential, as it is currently zoned. And the applicant wishes to amend the land use to regional commercial. The regional commercial land use designation includes the regional commercial zoning district and the research and development zoning district. The purpose of those zones is for larger scale regional type activities and uses, such as business parks, educational facilities, and other commercial activities that are utilized on a regional basis. The applicant is Wagstaff Investments, and they are interested in changing the property in order to facilitate a zoning map amendment that would permit the construction of a convenience store with gasoline services on the property, more particularly a Holiday Oil. So when the Planning Commission held their public hearing, the staff did present to them some alternative land use designations instead of just the regional commercial. And the reason being is the community commercial land use designation incorporates the neighborhood commercial zone as well as the general commercial. Those zones also permit a gasoline service station and convenience store. And the general commercial requires a conditional use permit, same as the regional commercial zone. If I'm confusing you, please stop me and I'll try better to explain it. But the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to reassign the land use, or recommend approval of reassigning the land use from high-density residential to community commercial instead of regional commercial. They felt that the community commercial land use designation was more appropriate for the area and the location of the property and still accomplish the designs of the applicant. So that is the request that's being asked for. They're asking for regional commercial land use. The Planning Commission recommended community commercial. Staff is actually in support of the community commercial as well. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Go ahead.
So I have a question. How does the applicant feel about this?
The applicant wants to build a convenience store with a gasoline service station, so they are okay with the community commercial. Okay. The reason they did the regional commercial is this is the same applicant that changed the land use and zoning for the property up on 600 West and 1000 North. They're just kind of doing the same thing they did before, but they're okay with the community commercial designation.
Council, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Excuse me, Andrew, it's my recollection that the Planning Commission recommended additional land be included in the council's land use action.
That was
Yes,
my
thanks.
question.
Thank you, Roger, for bringing that up. That is correct. The Planning Commission also recommended that the HDR parcel, well, it's not a parcel, but the portion of the parcel located to the north be included in the land use map amendment in order to, enable some commercial on that property as well, and instead of creating a rather difficult piece to develop for high-density residential. So that was also included in their recommendation. Thank you, Roger.
Sure, and as I recall, that may also facilitate cross-access and internal circulation between Coleman and 3 O'Clock Drive through these commercial properties.
Yes.
An additional question I have, and it's one of the concerns that I see, and just from driving by and trying to put myself in the shoes of a homeowner on the backside, and I realize part of this property backs a church parking lot, but how can we combat like light pollution into the residents' backyards against their houses? Because I imagine with the gas station, you have that light, and I'm just trying to project in my mind, if I was that homeowner, how can we address that? Or can we?
Well, there's only so much light pollution that you can stop. I live in Stansbury Park, and there's a Holiday Oil near my residence, and it is bright. They have those red and yellow signs, and you can see it. The best thing that they can do, the only thing they can do, is put cabinetry or something on the lights that directs the glare of the light downward into the site, but you're still going to see it.
Right.
That's really the only thing you can do, is direct the light downward into the site. Maybe use some bulbs that are not as bright. But yeah, you're going to see it.
Okay. Thank you.
And Councilman Graff, the conditional use permit process could address that as an anticipated adverse impact and attempt to look at these kinds of conditions at that time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any more questions from council?
Well, I just want to say that I respect what the Planning Commission said about that. And based on what we did when we changed it to what it is currently, and the conversations that was had with the citizens in that area, I totally understand where you're coming from with the light. But I could be totally wrong, but I'm thinking, I know they didn't want that high density there. I know they didn't. And to me, this is nothing's perfect, but this is a lot better than that high density that they were so against. You know what I mean? Because they did not want that, because that was a lot of apartments right there at their back door, and they didn't want that. And to be honest, I live on this side of town. We could really use another gas station on that side of town. We really could.
I agree. I think it's a good place for a gas station, but there was one person who did come to the Planning Commission, and they didn't want this either. So I mean, my personal opinion is that I think the traffic will be different with a convenience store than with high density, where you mostly get people going at the same time and coming back at the same time. So it may spread the traffic out a little bit. I think it's a good place, and I think it's better than a high density. I didn't think the high density was a great idea there, but I do think they're concerned with the lack of traffic light anywhere there. It'll make it hard, but
Yeah.
I think as far as development is concerned, this is a better option than what was there before. And it would be lovely if we could get UDOT to put in a light, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I know it's not going to happen if we don't develop.
Correct. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't Coleman one of the streets that
Yes.
UDOT was anticipating putting a light on?
It is.
So eventually it will be a light there, but,
Eventually.
and who knows, maybe this will expedite it. I don't know.
Any other comments from council? All right, seeing that this requires a public hearing, we'll open the public hearing with the same rules as before. If you come up to talk, then please sign your name on the thing over there, the paper over there.
The roster?
The roster, yeah. I knew there was a name for it.
I don't know if that's the right name, but
Anyway, the public hearing is open now, if anybody would like to come up. Seeing nobody come up for the public hearing, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll entertain a motion on this. Now, we're going to, if we're going to do like this planning commission, we need to,
Yeah, I got to read it into the.
change it a little bit.
Yeah.
we need to change it a little bit to community commercial and
Yep. Mr.
as to
Chairman.
include the other piece of properties
Yep.
in that,
Yep.
in
I got
that,
it.
whoever makes the motion, yes. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, to make a motion, we approve ordinance 2023-30, an ordinance to Tuola City reassigning the land use designation for approximately, would that be 4 acres? Approximately 4 acres of property located at 62 West 3 O'Clock Drive from high-density residential to community residential. No, community
Commercial.
community commercial, CC.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion from Councilman McCollum, a second from Councilwoman Manzione. Councilwoman Manzione, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Tony Graff, Councilman Graff. Sorry, you guys, I'm new. Yeah.
Aye.
Councilman McCall,
Aye.
and I also vote aye. Passes 4-0. We will go to item 10 on our agenda, which is
9.
ordinance, what's that?
Item 9.
Oh, yeah, number 9, sorry. I jumped over one. So item 9 on the agenda is public hearing and motion at ordinance 2023-31, an ordinance of Tuola City reassigning the land use designation for approximately 0.39 acres of land located at 105 East, 1000 North, from regional commercial to medium density residential. And it's presented by Andrew Agard again.
Thank you, members of the City Council. This is another land use map amendment, which is necessary in order to facilitate a zoning map amendment in similar fashion to the previous application. The property that is to be impacted by this land use map amendment is highlighted in red on the aerial photograph and rests immediately north of 1000 North and lines up perfectly with 100 East. The property has an existing residential home on it, along with some existing outbuildings. Currently, the property itself is about 5.5 acres and is pretty much everything that's zoned RR1 except for the RR1 piece located to the east of the subject property. The RR1 zoning is a rural residential 1 acre lot. You can see that there's some light industrial to the north along with some general commercial surrounding the property. The current land use designation of the property is regional commercial, and as I mentioned before, this is a land use designation that emphasizes regional type commercial uses. The applicant wishes to change the land use designation to MDR, which is medium density residential. The medium density residential designation is a single family residential land use, and it requires the R17, R18, or the R110 residential zone. Now, the applicant has a specific purpose in this request. She wishes to maintain her home on this property, but she wishes to subdivide a .39 acre parcel away from the 5.5 acre parcel so that she can maintain her home and sell the rest of the property if and when it sells for future development. In order to subdivide a .39 acre parcel, she has to have a zone that permits a .39 acre parcel. The RR1 requires 1 acre. She doesn't want 1 acre, she needs .39 acres. So the reason for this land use map amendment is to facilitate a zoning map amendment to a zone that permits a smaller residential lot, which will enable her to subdivide. I hope that you understand where I'm going with that. Okay. So that's the nature of this land use map amendment request. The Planning Commission did vote 6-0 on June 14th to recommend approval to reassign the land use from regional commercial to medium density residential. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Any questions for Andrew at this time? Okay, seeing none. All right, thank you, Andrew. This also requires a public hearing, so we will open the public hearing on this item. Same rules as before, and there's a roster over there. I don't know the name. Okay, so the public hearing, if anybody would like to come up, the public hearing is now open. Seeing nobody come up for the public hearing, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve approve ordinance 2023-31, reassigning the land use designation for approximately .39 acres of property located at 105 East 1000 North from regional commercial to medium density residential.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilwoman Manzione and a second from Councilman McCall. Councilman McCall, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Graft.
Aye.
Councilwoman Manzione.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. That passes 4-0. We will now go to item 10 on our agenda. And phew, the public meetings are over, so that's good. Public hearings are over. All right. Okay. Item number 10 is ordinance 2023-20, an ordinance of Tooele City reassigning the zoning for approximately .39 acres of property located at 60 South Main Street from general commercial to MU-G mixed-use general, presented by Andrew Agard, our Community Development Director.
Thank you, members of the City Council. I mentioned this application during the work session as it was kind of the catalyst for that zoning text amendment that we discussed. Just to refresh your memory, the item was tabled from the May 3rd City Council meeting. It was tabled to provide time for the city to work with the Downtown Alliance and also to research the code concerning the permitting of residential uses in the downtown area. We've already addressed that, and so we felt that since the ordinance already permits that, we might as well move this forward and get a decision. The property is located, it's an existing building located north of 100 South and west of Main Street. The property is currently zoned GC General Commercial, as are all of the surrounding properties. The land use map was changed to mixed use, which does facilitate the mixed use general and the mixed use Broadway zoning districts. And then as far as the zoning goes, the applicant is requesting the subject property be rezoned to MUG. Her reason for the request is to facilitate a residential treatment facility in the upper floors of the structure. And it's here for your decision tonight. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those for you. The applicant is also here to address any questions the City Council might have as well. So.
Okay, any questions for Andrew at this time?
So to refresh from the work meeting, in the general commercial, which it is right now, right?
Yes.
You are allowed accessory dwelling units with a conditional use permit.
Yes.
And then to switch it to the mixed-use commercial, that's to do the residential treatments facility, right?
Yes, the mixed-use general does allow residential on the upper floor in addition to a residential treatment facility.
Correct, yeah, okay. All right. Okay, any other questions? You have any questions for the applicant? Anybody? Since she's here. I see a look on your face.
I know, I'm trying to, I don't know what to ask you. I mean, I think you were here before, and I said then, I think it's the downtown that we're trying to redevelop, and in my opinion, I think is highly necessary to have residential treatment centers. But I don't know that it's the exact place for it when we're trying to redevelop and spur economic development in the downtown area, because we want people who are going to come spend money and shop in the stores that we're trying to encourage to open and to beef up their business. And so that's my one concern, is that if it's not residential, there are not people living there spending money in the community.
Sure.
And I just think maybe there's a better place for it.
So just to go over our plan right now for the building. So we currently have a group living designation under a conditional use permit. So this was just to have the options later on down the road to be able to have mixed use. If for some reason we didn't do the group living, then we would be able to have our 8 residential apartments upstairs that have always been there, and it would be under the new zone, which would fall under mixed use general. So currently, with a conditional use permit, I can have an accessory dwelling, but I cannot have 8. But my building has always had 8 apartments in it. So I would have to have mixed use general. So currently,
So you already have the facility there.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yes, but it's not a residential treatment facility. So this is a community center for those in recovery. So we will have commercial on the main, which will have treatment, counseling, day treatment, and intensive outpatient treatment, but upstairs is living quarters. They are not mandated to live there. They are independently living in a group environment, acclimating from residential treatment back into independent living. So if you think of residential treatment centers, they are there 24 hours a day, right? Then where do they go? After they graduate out of a residential treatment, where would we house those individuals? Would they have to go back to homelessness? Or do we have any transitional living? We do not have any transitional living until this last year. So the Beacon House has opened up multiple different facilities that are transitional living centers that help educate them and give them life skills to integrate back into society in just acclimating back in with case management. So this would be group living, but independent living upstairs, with their community center on the main level.
Answer your question?
Yeah.
You're good? All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Right now.
You're welcome.
All right. We'd like to entertain a motion for ordinance 2023-20. And I'll make that motion. I'll make a motion. We approve 2023-20, an ordinance of Twila City reassigning the zoning for approximately .39 acres of property located at 60 South Main Street from general commercial to mixed-use commercial.
I'll second it.
Got a motion from Councilman Hanson, a second by Councilman McCall. Councilwoman Mandione?
I'm going to vote no.
No. Okay. Councilman Graft?
Nay?
Nay. I vote aye. Councilman
Vote
McCall?
aye.
Vote aye. It ends up 2-2, which denies that. So we'll move on to number.
Can I just explain my vote?
Sure.
Because I think I said it, but I just want you to know, I think the business is very awesome. And I have relatives who have been in residential treatment, and I know we need transition. I just think the location where we're trying to develop the commercial, and I just think it's not the best location. So while I do think that I want people living there, and I agree with that. I think the community commercial allows for the living space up above, so that's why I'm voting no.
I guess I'll explain my vote as well. I think one of the greatest benefits we've had in Tooele City in the past, I'd say 5 years, is we've had increased treatment facilities, and we need them, right? Our community needs those. And if we don't provide that, people are still going to be here, they're just not going to have any treatment facilities. And so I think I applaud that and I support that. The location doesn't seem to be ideal, and that is a concern that I have. And when I look at this map and what's behind us, it creates this little island, which to me is tough. I like it to be consistent, especially in this particular area. So that's the reason for my vote. But I do wish you well in your pursuits. And
Can I answer a question, though, that you guys said?
Mr.
Oh, we've
Shaw.
already had a vote on it, so we could do it, you could do it in person after.
Okay, I think you're getting something wrong, because we already are zoned for this use. So we'll continue to use this use.
Right, yes.
This would actually make it so that we could use it without this use. So we could have normal apartments upstairs.
Right.
So it has nothing to do with the residential treatment. It actually has to do with letting regular folks with independent living live in 8 separate apartments.
Right.
Nothing to do with that.
Yeah, thank you. We can have a discussion on that. We can bring it back if we decide to. All right, thank you. Okay, we'll go on to item number 11, ordinance 2023-24. An ordinance of Tooele City amending the Tooele City Personal Policies and Procedures Manuals, presented by Cammie Perkins, our Human Resource Director.
Okay, thank you. We've had a lot of discussions back in May on several topics during a work session, and several of those required that we bring back to you revisions to our policies and procedures in order to implement the direction. It was also a good time because there's been some changes in law that have necessitated updating our policies and procedures manual. And for the benefit of the public and the members that are here, I'm just going to summarize a few of the things that we're presenting to you. The first one is just a simple update, but it's not a simple concept. It is a simple update to our equal employment opportunity and accommodation policy. And you may have heard through the federal legislation, they passed the Federal Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, as well as the PUMP Act, which deals with pregnancy accommodation in the workplace, and a mandate that employers accommodate and provide women who desire to express milk after giving birth a private location and the time to do that. I'm very proud of our state. Utah actually has had this as a state law for several years, so the federal is just catching up with what we have already been doing. All we're doing is updating our handbook to reflect that, yes, we also comply with that law, which I did not see anything that changed from what Utah has already had in place. A couple minor revisions, just typos or editorial changes to our outside employment. The biggest section that we have changes is going to be on our benefits section. And the biggest one in there, just for the audience's knowledge, was you guys made the decision to make changes to your total compensation package, and you're discontinuing offering health insurance to the council. And in exchange for that, we're going to reduce total compensation for our elected council members quite substantially. And we've taken the value of what we paid to the waiver benefit for some of you that had that, and that will instead just be added as compensation. And moving forward, the city council will be able to still participate in some of our benefits, but will no longer have access to the health insurance program. We've also put in there just some updates we needed for our cash in lieu policy, ironically, right? Health savings account eligibility, getting a few things in place there. Benefit protection contracts with the state retirement office. And what this is this means that if an employee is on leave, do we continue to pay retirement benefits, and do they continue to accrue retirement credits? Many years ago, we had to address this as an agency, and it dealt with things like short-term disability, workers' compensation leaves, long-term disability. And we made the decision that we would offer and do continuation for short-term disability, because that's a limit of now 14 weeks, kind of overlaps with FMLA anyways, and for workers' compensation. They made a legislative change that does mandate that if there is a public, a police officer or firefighter that becomes disabled in the line of duty, that we have to continue for them. Now, that seems a little bit ironic because we've already adopted workers' compensation, right? But there are times when workers' compensation would end, even though it was a line of duty, because the officer or the firefighter may have reached what's called maximum medical improvement, or they may do a settlement with them. Somehow the benefits for workers' comp continue and they switch over to long-term disability. The way it is set up by law now is in those events, we would be liable and have to continue retirement credits for that line of duty injury if they're unable to work. Now, some of the things that are built into the law with the long-term disability and workers' comp, they have transitional duty, they have rehabilitation work, they bring them back to work, and after 2 years, they have to be unable to engage in any employment. First 2 years is going to be their present occupation. So there's still some stop losses in there, but that is now mandated by law. So we're putting that into our policy to make sure that our officers and firefighters are aware of that. I hope it is a benefit that we never have to process for our agency, because that means we don't have our public responders injured that long and make them unable to return back to work. Another one was just putting in an example of exemption from vesting on the Tier 2. These are things that you guys pay me to stay on top of for you and to know a lot about. But on the Tier 2, there are certain positions, your department heads, that can exempt out of the vesting requirement if they take the deferred compensation, or excuse me, the DC program in lieu of the pension benefit. One of those laws that the legislature wrote that I said, why wouldn't they fill out the exemption form? Why would somebody stay in and say, I'm going to be subject to exemption? And basically, we wrote in the policy, as you read it, that they're very complex, and we are going to advise anyone who might be eligible to exempt out to consult with the retirement office before making that decision. The last one that we're going to be updating is on Section 30. It deals with retiring and retiree benefits. This, again, is another law that was changed that impacts our emergency responders. As you're aware, a lot of attention over the last few years has been placed on the mental health and well-being, the mental well-being of our emergency responders. And they did put in a requirement last year that mandated that as an agency we make mental health benefits available to our retirees. And they went back through the legislation this year, and they limited that to a time period after they retire, but they also expanded it to their spouse and some other positions that are exposed to mental health situations. So it would cover, for example, our prosecuting attorneys that have to deal with sex crimes. That was one that was listed, crimes against children. It also includes an on-scene evidence technician, someone that's processing the scene but might not be in the public safety benefit. And this last year, they put in another exception that allows us to provide different avenues to fulfill and to provide emergency mental health services to our emergency responders. So working with Chief Day, we've updated that policy to make sure not only that we're in compliance with the law, but also to make sure that we have some good care programs in place for our emergency responders. And we are bringing that to you now in the policy. And that is just a brief summary. Primarily, like I said, I know you've read those and we've talked about them, but for the audience and the public, I wanted to just do a recap on some of the issues you're changing policy on.
Okay, any questions from council? Seeing no questions, I'll thank you, Cammie. I'll entertain a motion for ordinance 2023-24.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve ordinance 2023-24 and ordinance of Tooele City amending the Tooele City Personnel Policies Code, Policies and Procedures Manual.
Second.
Where else I'll
We
go
have a motion by Councilman McCall and a second by Councilwoman Manzione. Bring it to a vote. Councilman McCall?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. It passes 4-0. Move on to item 12 on our agenda, Resolution 2023-38. Excuse me. a resolution of the Twila City Council adopting the modified Public Employees Health Program, IRC Section 125 cafeteria prototype plan for the Twila City's cash in lieu waiver program.
IRC stands for Internal Revenue Code. That's all the fun IRS terminology that we have to deal with. This is another one that we talked about during the last work session, and just briefly to refresh your memory, this deals with just getting the legal plan documents in place for us to be able to administer our health insurance waiver plan. That's the benefit that we offer if employees can provide evidence of other Affordable Care Act credible coverage, that we will pay them a cash in lieu of taking our coverage. And this has become necessary last year. We switched our flex plan providers, and it was just a plan document that was not implemented. I came to you and said I missed it. And so we're bringing this back and retroactively putting this into effect just to make sure that we're able to run this plan in compliance with what the IRS requires of us in order to offer this benefit, and make sure we can put it in front of them if we have an IRS audit asking us about our plan.
Okay. Any questions for Cammie? Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. I will make a motion we approve Resolution 2023-38, a resolution of the Twila City Council adopting the Modified Public Employees Health Program, IRC Section 125, cafeteria prototype plan for the Twila City's cash in lieu waiver program.
I'll second.
Got a motion from Councilman Hanson, and a second from Councilman McCall. Councilwoman Manzione, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Graft.
Aye.
Councilman McCall.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. We move on to item number 13, a resolution 2023-49, a resolution of the Twila City Council approving an agreement with R.H. Borden and Company, LLC, for a sewer line transmissive acoustics assessment services, presented by Jamie Grand Prix, our Public Works Director.
Good evening, Council. So last summer, we brought this to you for the first time to do some acoustics services on our sewer system. And so we did 1/3 of the town with some pretty good results. And so now I'd like to bring the second resolution to you to do our middle section of town. So just a kind of a quick kind of summary of what we did last year. Last year we videoed or did acoustic assessments on 272,098 feet of sewer line and 983 manholes. Of those, we found that 590 manholes, 60% of the system was in good condition. We found that 299 manholes, or 30% of the system, was in fair condition. And 76 manholes, which was about almost 8%, was in poor, and about 2%, or about 18 manholes, was blocked or in very bad shape. So from that, we was able to then go and take care of those issues that were at least in the poor or block situation, and just kind of working on those that are in the fair. But it does give us a good assessment of the stuff that's in good that we don't really need to worry about, and try to focus our energies on those that are in the either in the fair or poor to block situation. So with that, we had a good turnout. It kind of gave us a good glimpse of what was going on in the south end of town. And so so now with resolution 2023-49, we were asking to do the middle section of town, which is another approximately 265 feet of, or 265,000 feet of pipe and 1,000 manholes for $57,700 using the same company, R.H. Borden, that we did last year. And so that's my quick summary. I can answer any questions if you have questions.
Any questions for Jamie on this one?
I do. Do you ever come to us and ask for something like, it's $1,000?
No, anything in public works
always
starts
wants
at
a
about
lot of money.
25,000.
Anything to do with the sewer, it costs thousands. It's like, God, Jamie, come on, you're killing me.
It does. And the good thing with this is even though we're spending $57,000, I would have sent our cleaning crew out to do this whole section of town, which would have spent a lot more to do that. So we were able to save and focus just on those areas that needed the energy and not the whole town. Because with this, I can still use this with the state and say, hey, this is our inspections, this is what we did. I don't have to send a crew out to do all of this. And so there was some cost savings with labor and putting them to other things to do, so.
So he's saying yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? You'll entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Resolution 2023-49, approving an agreement with RH Borden and Company LLC for sewer line transmissive acoustics assessment services.
I'll second.
Got a motion from Councilwoman Manzione and a second from Councilman McCall. Councilwoman Manzione, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Graft?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Thank you. We will move on to item 14, Resolution 2023-50, a resolution of the Twila City Council approving an agreement with TechServe Incorporated for computer network maintenance services. That'll be presented by Chris Nielsen, our IT Director.
Thank you, council members, for this opportunity. For the past 15 years, Twila City has been working with TechServe in order to provide the infrastructure and services that our city needs to be able to operate on the digital front. And so this contract we're bringing forward is just an extension of our current agreement with them. It will run through the next calendar year from July 1st to July 30th. As part of this, though, we are reducing the amount of hours that we use TechServe for. Part of my coming onto this position is we wanted to try and reduce some of the necessity of external services. So we've made an effort to reduce hours, in addition with the cost increasing of everything in general. This contract would be for about $41,000 and would cover 5 hours per week of service. The technician coming out has extensive history in our program, and as well helps provide us services like the setup and installation of servers or specific services that he may be more familiar with than our department is. He brings a lot of experience that we feel is definitely worth extending this contract for. And so if there are any questions about this, I'd be happy to answer it at this time.
Any questions for Chris? All right, well, thank you. We'll entertain a motion for this one.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Resolution 2023-50, a resolution of Twila City Council approving an agreement with TechServe Incorporated for computer network maintenance services.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Graff and a second by Councilman McCall. Councilwoman Manzione, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Graft?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. We will go to item 15, Resolution 23-51, a resolution of the Twila City Council approving a change order number 2 with Broken Arrow Incorporated for the 2022 7th Street Road and Utility Improvement Project, presented by Paul Hansen, the city engineer.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for more money, Chairman. The resolution before you is change order number 2, as you referenced, for the 7th Street project. Change order 1, as you recall, was approving work done at the City Parks building. It was similar type work that had been put out for bid. This project is back on the actual street in that in the work, they've discovered there are utilities that will need to be relocated for installation of the storm drain.
Yeah.
The major component of this one is underground power conduit for Rocky Mountain. The agreement that we have with the franchise is that they will relocate power lines, but not underground utilities for other utility placement. We'll need to look at that and talk about that in the future, but regardless for tonight. So the city's responsibility would be to install the conduit within the road and create other surface improvements, and then Rocky Mountain Power would come in and actually run the electrified wire through the conduit, set the power boxes. The cost that we have received from Broken Arrow is $54,904.83. There's a second utility conflict which has also been identified, and it's related to a duct bank of communications pipes for telephone, fiber, cable, and a variety of other uses. This was not marked by blue stakes. It was not known to be there. And as we've talked with our contractor and with the owners of those utilities, it would cost us more to sit around and wait for them to come in and fix it and pay liquidated damages to our contractor to stand by than to just modify our design. So in an effort to save money for the city, we've asked Broken Arrow to make some design modifications which run just under $10,000. So our request to you tonight, in order to keep the project moving, is to approve a change order in the amount of $65,000. That would cover both the Rocky Mountain work and also this design modification. And because the project's not done, we're asking that you set aside an additional $5,000 contingency that would be available at the discretion of the mayor if we find other items that are yet to surprise us. That is our request to you tonight.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Well, on this one, Paul, I was expecting you to come with some asking for money. I had the opportunity to ride with Broken Arrow this past weekend, and they showed me what I'm talking about. And the people who did it years and years ago wasn't thinking about that. It's right on the street. And he showed me, so I knew you were going to bring that to me. So that doesn't hurt quite as bad as Jamie.
Oh, by the way, this would be paid for out of the storm drain fund
Storm drain
because
fund.
it's related to the storm drain project.
All right. All right, any other questions? None? I'll entertain a motion on Resolution 2023-51.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve Resolution 2023-51.
And
As read by
I'll
Paul.
second it, so we've got a,
I'm sorry, but I have to put with the contingency and the adjustment. Right, Raj? Yeah.
you got it?
I said it
With
with
the
the
extra
contingency and the,
Yeah.
the contingency was the $5,000 and the 10 is the adjustment.
The 65.
65.
65,000.
65 and 5, okay, I'll second that. We got a motion from Councilman McCall and a second from Councilman Hanson. We'll bring it to a vote. Councilwoman Manzione.
Aye.
Councilman Graft.
Aye.
Councilman McCall.
Aye.
And I also vote aye.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Go to item 16, which is invoices. We have invoices, Michelle? No invoices tonight. I guess we spent enough money.
And Jamie, I apologize, Jamie. I apologize. I really do. I just knew Michelle was going to come with a couple of $100,000 worth of invoices.
All right, we'll go to item 17, which is our minutes. I don't know if you've had a chance to read them over. Is there any changes that anybody has for them? Okay, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion on the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
We got a motion by Councilman Graft and a second by Councilman McCall. Councilman Manzione, how do you
Aye.
vote? Councilman Graft.
Aye.
Councilman McCall.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. That's, number 18 is to adjourn, so we will adjourn.